Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the Designer back at it again. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love as always, man. It is time for mock draft season, ladies and gentlemen. The mocks are here, and we've got Field Yates starting us off here with mock draft 1.0, and he has the Chicago Bears taking the edge rusher there. Going to be interesting to see some of you guys' thoughts on this guy because I love this guy as a potential prospect for the Bears, but there are bigger names out there. So I want to hear from you guys on that as well. And Darnell Wright in a very interesting situation. We know what the All-Pro can do now, and there is a real conversation about possibly picking up Darnell Wright's fifth-year option and trying to get a contract done earlier than later. All that and more in today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Appreciate y'all for showing love as you guys always do, man. If you guys rock with the show, number one, drop an FGB in the chat just because they're still crying about us beating them in the playoffs, dog. So shout out to that. Number two, I appreciate everybody who supports the show. If you guys could do a favor, share this up on the show, social, share it to your Twitter, share it wherever you log in and enjoy your content, Instagram bios, all that stuff, man, because word of mouth truly is the best way to grow the channel, man. And we appreciate everybody who rocks with this channel on a day in, day out basis. And of course, the podcast on a day in, day out basis too. And if you do share it, man, tag me in it. I'll repost it to my Instagram to show you guys some love as well. So let's start it off with this one, man. Zion Young. Before we do that, let's make sure we're paying bills. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog. Make picks, win money. All right, let's get into this now. Zion Young is the player that Field Yates has mocked to the Chicago Bears in this early edition of the mock draft. And we're starting off in a better place than I feel like we've been in a long time. Reason being, right, every mock draft is always the same thing. Oh my God, there could be 9 names that you really like in this draft, and I'm looking at X, Y, and Z. I'm looking at this guy. This guy fits the Bears better than this guy does. At 25, yes, you're still going to have some of that conversation, but realistically speaking, there's not this massive conversation on all of these guys that do not fit the Chicago Bears or on all of these guys that are going to be best at 25. There's a few names that maybe you can look at and say, this guy had a bigger name, this guy had more production, and so I would rather see that than this. But realistically speaking, you're looking for the kind of player that Zion Young is here, and to me, that is a high floor, high ceiling caliber of player. Senior this season, 6'5", 262 pounds, prototypical Dennis Allen defensive end, right? Big body, a lot of muscle, able to set the edge. This is exactly what DA is looking for. In his time in his senior year in college, he had 42 total tackles. 42 total tackles, 20 solo, 22 assisted, 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 passes defended. The passes defended one is one that I want to get back into as well because that's a very interesting one. 5 over his last 2 years in college. He knows how to get the hands up. That's very exciting coming in here. But when you talk about the type of player that Zion Young is and looking at the tape in a couple of different ways now, thanks to Ben Johnson, but looking at the tape on what this young man is, I see a player who is a high floor, high ceiling type of player. And what I mean by that is when you talk about some of the strengths, some of the things I jotted down, quick first step. Very quick first step, does a great job of getting off the line and getting past his guy. And not only that, the IQ to me stood out on display. What I mean by that, it seems like when you watch the tape, again, not having a chance to hear from him, talk to him, anything like that at this point, but like when you hear from or when you see Zion Young on tape, it not only looks like he has that quick first step, but he knows where he's going. He's intentional with his steps. He's not trying to just go out there and get past his guy and run all the way past him to get back to the quarterback. To me, you're seeing a player that is very intentional with his steps, that is very measured with his steps, and is willing to, even though he does have the speed and agility to beat a tackle off of the line, right? And the strength, if we're being honest to you, he can go right through you if he wants to. He has all of those traits, but it's also about knowing where to get there. I love seeing the 40 times. I love seeing the what's the other one, right? The 3-cone drill and all of that, because that adds to the story. Right? Though that's the filler information for the story. But bottom line, the information that we're looking for, what we want to see from the player on the field is what they showed you in college. And when you look at this young man in college, while all of that information is going to be great, I love the fact that it's not just pure speed. but you're running past the spot. This is a guy that is smart enough, knows the system that he's in, very versatile player. He's shown some inside and outside ability. 2 years at Michigan State, played a little bit inside, also played outside as well. This is somebody we got to ask Shay about on Monday, possibly because of the Michigan State tie. I hate them so much. But I also think that he brings really good length and has a solid frame, exactly what DA is looking for in that conversation. To me, the one thing that I do love about him is the pass rush upside that he has. You see the 6.5 sacks, you go, come on, Pat, 6.5 sacks. What are we even talking about here? But I think that that's because there are some things that need to be refined. There's some development that needs to be in place. There is a portion of this where you look at a guy and you say, when I see Zion Young, he could be a 6.5 sack guy off the bat entering the NFL. I think he is that level of talent, right? And to me, that is the kind of player that you say, okay, I really like that this guy can do this, but what can we add? That's where I love the fact that we have Dennis Allen and Jeremy Garrett in the coaching room already, right? The fact that you have the defensive staff in place that puts guys in a position to go out there and be successful, and then you just have to have the talent to meet that. To me, I think that's where some of the development is going to have to come in with a guy like Zion Young, because to me, block shedding, especially in the run game, is something that he has struggled with at times. He has had a lot of flashes in the pass rush game. He's somebody who is definitely bursting onto the scene in moments throughout the game, but it has not been play in, play out consistency. And what I've started to do, when I said earlier, watching the tape in a different way, Ben Johnson said something early in the season that now I've incorporated into tape watching, because a lot of times people just watch the clips on the TV copy. And I used to go, you're not getting a ton out of that. But Ben Johnson brought out the point of he would watch it for the offensive line to see how much push they were really getting. How far are you pushing guys back? And so now watching the TV copy, the one thing that you see is when Zion Young is locked in and he is pushing and he is being aggressive and he knows where he's supposed to get to and he attacks the spot, he can get there. He's a force, right? He's got the strength. He's got the size, 33.5-inch arms. Again, exactly what you want to see if you're Dennis Allen, right? But the one part that he doesn't always have is that consistency of dominance. And I'm talking about with, especially with some shedding, a block shedding there, that, sometimes he gets the hand placement a little off and gets a little bit wrapped up. It's not all the time, right? But that's something where if you're taking a player at 25 and that's the thing that you need him to work on, well, you need to see some really good flashes on the flip side of that to feel like you can work that out of him. And you do. The 6.5 sacks, I mean, you're talking about strip sacks there, forced fumbles there. He's getting to the quarterback. He's forcing pressure, and that's the part that does excite me a little bit about him. But when you talk about consistency of dominance, that's the part that I think you need to raise the level on. But all the traits are there. Everything that you want to see. I love the one thing that I do love outside of, some of the block shedding versus the run. When he's playing the run, he does a really good job of setting that edge, possibly extending the running back out, forcing him to get into some tough situations where a DB or a safety can come down. I guess they're all DBs, or a linebacker can come down and make a play on the running back, right? That's what we were missing last year when having Austin Booker. You guys know, I love Austin Booker. I think he's a great player. I think he's somebody that I would love to have a part of this team for the long run. But realistically speaking, if you're talking about what Austin Booker brings to the table, you're not looking at the run game. You're looking at that third and long pass rushing, right? You're looking at him as a pass rush specialist, right? Like, to me, I think you look at this kind of player in Zion Young, and you feel like he's somebody who can be an every down kind of player. But starting off, right, you're going to have to win that job. It's going to create the competition. And so if you're starting off with him as a rotational pass rusher, or maybe just a sub-package disruptor a little bit and throwing him in certain situations inside and outside, I think you're starting him off in a really, really good spot. Of course, you're going to still have Dio Adangbo on the roster. There's going to be these pieces that you look at and you say, you're going to have to beat these guys out, very similar to a lot of what we saw in camp this year. But you've got a player to me in Zion Young that not only has that floor at a high level, but has so much more to build on, that it does excite me to see him at 25. And the possibility of him coming to the Bears is a rational conversation that I'm willing to have. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bigger names out there that might be a little bit more fitting at 25. I'm not saying that there aren't more exciting names out there that you could go big fish hunting with, even though, we talked about it yesterday. Is big fish hunting always the answer? But bottom line for me, when I look at the situation that the Chicago Bears are in right now, I feel like this is the kind of player you can build with. It puts it on the onus on the coaches to develop the most out of him. And it's a player that I think Bears fans would be very excited about moving forward. I know a lot of people look at him and say he's a day two guy, but even if you were to go the direction of, right, maybe take somebody at 25 and try and trade back in if he is still there to try and get a little higher in the draft and pick a player up like him, I wouldn't be mad at that. Let me know how you guys feel about Zion Young in the comments below. On top of that, do you think defensive end is the position that we need to go at 25, or are you more locked in on left tackle or nose tackle for the Chicago Bears at that spot? Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below, man. We appreciate y'all for showing love as always. We got to tell you guys all about Underdog before we get into this next topic, talking a little bit about Darnell Wright here. Underdog is the best app on the market right now for you to go out there and win money watching games every single night. Download the app today. Sign up with the promo code CBP to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code CBP. And there's so many things that you could play on right now. I mean, you're talking about the Olympics. Olympic hockey is about to be elite right now. You're talking about NBA basketball right now. We're coming into the All-Star break, but coming out of that All-Star break, right, you're going to start to see teams lock in a little bit more. And so I'm looking at that and saying, okay, 3 points attempted, 3-pointers made, 3 points attempted has got to be a gimme. Fantasy points on there. What is the takeaway that you want to see? Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below on that. And make sure that you guys are tapping in with Underdog. It's so easy because if you play higher or lower on any of those, get them right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Download the app today to sign up with the promo code CBP to score $75 in bonus entries when your first $5 when you play your first $5, there's promo code CBP. Nick, cue the disclaimer. Must be 18 years or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or over in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Your roof's got more layers than a conspiracy podcast.
Is that a sandwich wrapper?
Ah, yes. Vintage 1988. It really builds character.
Avondale Roofing. Inspect smarter, dig deeper, and get to the core of your roof's health.
Welcome back into the Chicago Bears podcast. Pat, the designer, back at it again. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. As always, today's episode also brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, or they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. Las Vegas-style gaming, just 30 minutes from Soldier Field. Exit 6 right off of I-80-94. All right, let's jump back into this, right? Because I think now, we had the conversation on Zion Young. We got to talk about a conversation on a player that you did draft, that did hit for you, and maybe you're going to want to pay him a little bit sooner than later. When you look at a player like Darnell Wright and what he possibly could mean to this team moving forward, right? You love the fact that you have such a dominant force on that right side, and one that I think really could give you some options on the left side if you were intrigued in going that route. But with his fifth-year option a couple of years away, SpotTrack has dropped what his fifth-year option would look like, and it would be about $20.3 million for 2027 if the Chicago Bears were to exercise it. Now, the Bears aren't in a position right now where they have to go out there and do this move now. But because of how low that number is, the question is, would you want to do that knowing that there's a possibility for you to save some money in the long run? If you were to extend him now at that $20.3 million range, maybe you give him a little bit more on that, say, hey, you're going to make more than this in the long run. You're still saving money on where guys like Penei Sewell are at about $28 million a year. Now, is Darnell Wright better than Penei Sewell? I wouldn't go that far, but we know how this football market works. Everybody's usually looking to be the guy that sets that next market. And you know what? Darnell Wright making an all-pro being the level of player that he is, being the dominant force that he's been on that right side. Started off a little bit rocky at the beginning of the season, has the injury, comes back from the injury, turns into one of the most dominant tackles in football. You're supposed to be having conversations like this about players like that. It's a good thing for you to be in a position where you might want to pick up the money now. And here's the thing for me. When I'm looking at this situation, and if there's any world where you can save a couple of million here and there, knowing you got to pay Caleb Williams, you have to explore that world. But here's the bottom line of it. Right now, you don't have to go down the road of paying Darnell Wright. And I think there's too much for you to still fix on this team for you to start looking deep down that path. Reason being, we don't know. You're probably, because of some of the signings you made, priced out of retaining Jaquan Brisker. Deshaun Wright more than likely will not be back with this roster. I would assume that he's going to get the bag somewhere else. You're probably not bringing back a guy like CJ GJ. You probably have reinvigorated his stock in this NFL. So now you're starting to look at all these pieces that you're not going to have going into next season and saying, well, we can address some of this via the draft, but we are still going to have to sign people. We are still going to have to bring guys back. I would assume you want a leader like you have in Kevin Byard back in your locker room, and probably he made himself a pretty penny this season by going out there and being the turnover leader or the interception leader, I should say, for the NFL. I believe Deshaun Wright was the turnover leader for the, or do I have that backwards? No, Deshaun Wright was the interception leader. Kevin Byard was the turnover leader for the NFL. We had a lot of turnovers, bottom line, right? Here's the thing for me that I think why you don't go out and try and extend Darnell Wright right now. If you're talking about in a couple of years, Darnell Wright being the level of player that you need to pay $32 million to, you win. Like that's it. You did it right. And yeah, you could have saved a little bit of money here, but maybe there are players you couldn't have added to the roster. Maybe there are players that you couldn't have put on the team, right? You couldn't make the team better because of the money you were trying to save now money you were trying to save in the future. You wanted to get it done now, but now you can't add to the team to make the team better right now. I don't think that's a spot that you want to be in if you're the Chicago Bears. You're finally getting to yourself to a point where after this season, right, there's a lot of money that's going to come off the books. You're going to have a lot of opportunity to re-sign Darnell to a big name contract. You're going to have more funds available. It's the one thing that I think Ryan Poles has done a really good job of. And I know, right, this wouldn't affect this upcoming season and going out there, but the players you're going to bring in, right, you're probably talking about trying to get some long-term pieces in here, not just stopgaps for some of these positions, whether those long-term pieces are via the free agency or via the draft, right? Like you're trying to find pieces that you cannot have to worry about for at least a couple of years. And so because of the money that's coming off of the books, I'm not focused on Darnell Wright right now. It's not to say I'm not excited about the fact that you could save a little bit of money on him for the long run, but I think you've set yourself up pretty well for you to be in a good position to pay Darnell Wright in the long run. So I'm not messing with anything, especially in a season where you may need to go out there and get you somebody like if they don't bring him back because of financial reasons, Taylor Decker right on that left side just to fill in a spot for a year until hopefully Ozzie Trapilla was able to come back from that patellar tendon injury. We know the outlook on that. You may be drafting a left tackle at some point in this draft as well, or maybe just trying to develop Theo Benedette even further, who the Bears brought back. But you're in this situation now where you don't have a ton of money to spend this offseason. So why do it this offseason? Next offseason, you're probably going to have a little more money to spend. Maybe you're more willing to have that conversation. And of course, you always have the option of pick up the fifth-year option, renegotiate the contract, void out the fifth-year option, and have the new contract in place. So you've got a ton of options available to you. I don't think create issues or create money where you don't need to create it right now. You have a top-tier offensive line, and having to pay money to that offensive line in the future is not an issue for me. And I also don't think you want to put yourself in this position where you are, not to say trying to find savings on guys, because again, you're paying guys market price. If you were to pay them right now, maybe you save a little bit of money, but you'd still pay them whatever the market price is for tackles right now. But I mean, listen, like I love how you handle Jalen Johnson. Unfortunately, because of the coach and the injury, it hasn't worked out. By the way, Keenan Allen really put that on Front Street, didn't he? talking about what held him back. But because of the coach and the injury, it hasn't worked out how you'd like it with Jalen Johnson. But you asked Jalen Johnson to go out there and improve in takeaways and be a great cover corner, and guess what? He was able to do that. And so you paid him like a corner that was valued on the market for the production that he had that season. I think that's okay to say that you're paying guys market value. There are a lot of guys in this NFL that are getting paid market value on the teams that they're on. And I know we want to pinch pennies and save nickels and dimes here. That's what the void system can be used for. That's what, extrapolating some of that money out can be used for. Like, I think there's better ways for you to do that than trying to shortchange some of the guys that you have by signing them a year early and putting yourself in a deficit in some other positions that you have on the field. So to me, I wouldn't worry about Darnell Wright right now. I would worry about finding who's going to play left tackle, whether that's going to be Theo heading into the season, or you're going to draft somebody, or if you're going to bring a veteran in. I would worry about what's going on with the upcoming draft. I would worry about paying some of the guys that you probably are going to want to bring back on defense. 2 names for sure, Kevin Byard, and I would assume DeMarco Jackson you want back in here, and he's going to come at more than the $870,000 that you had him for last season because of the production you saw out of that young man. So you got to get the business part of this right, and it seems like the Bears are starting to do that. I wouldn't worry about Darnell Wright, but maybe you differ from me. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. Would you rather save money at that tackle position and maybe have a little bit less to work with as you move forward in free agency, or are you like me and you're like, nah, don't worry about that. Spend the money on the positions you need. Let me know how you guys feel. As always, man, it's your boy, Pat the Designer. Back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. We'll be back tomorrow with Jason McKee back on the podcast. Peace.